South Dakota.
Hi guys, I'm Damen, and my husband and I are an international couple, and we created this channel to talk a little bit about our adventures between Brazil and United States, and also to talk about a lot of cool things. Here today I'm with Ann, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself and talk about the amazing things she's doing with her husband.
My name is Ann Dvorak, and we live here in Custer, South Dakota. My husband and I are privileged to have the Shady Rest Motel. It's a little set of historic cabins. We're near Mount Rushmore National Memorial, which is part of the way that we got into this. My husband and I used to both be park rangers here in the United States.
Oh wow!
So I was 5 years at Mount Rushmore, and my husband was down at Wind Cave. Now that was almost 30 years ago when we first got married. And since then we didn't know we would ever end up being hospitality, or in the hospitality business. But we've come here to South Dakota after being out on the West Coast for the last 11 years. And wanted to get back to the Black Hills and back into more of the traditional values to raise our family. So that is how we happened to come here.
That's impressive. And how you guys got this idea? Because this is amazing, guys. It is delicious. We feel home. And Alec and I, we travel so much, and it's the first time we feel like home.
Well, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing. My husband is an electrical engineer, and we were living out on the West Coast and had just adopted our 3 youngest kids. And in 2008, there was that big economic depression, and there were so many people in John's work that were laid off. But for those who stayed, which he was one of them, there was a lot of pressure. And so when we were out for my niece's wedding to the Black Hills in the fall of 2009, I asked John, if you could do anything else with your life, what would you like to do? What is your dream? And he said, you know, I think I'd like to run a motel. And I said, really? I thought you wanted to be a foot doctor. This was completely different for me. So I said, okay, well, let's pray and ask the Lord where he wants to lead us. And so we contacted a local realtor. And he came over with a short stack of papers, and we looked at them, and we couldn't touch any of them. They were all too expensive. But we prayed and said, okay, Lord, where do you want us to serve? And we went back to that stack of papers, and as we were looking through it, we noticed the one for the Shady Rest Motel. We hadn't noticed it the first time through. And It was a stretch, but it was within reach. So we contacted the people contacted the realtor and said, is this still available? And he said, well, I think it is still for sale, but the thing about it is I don't remember putting it in the stack. And when we looked, it had expired 4 years earlier, the listing, and was listed with a different company. So we were like, well, this sounds like God's doing something.
Yeah.
So we drove through the property, and here the gal was doing all of her laundry on the back line. She used to have these large laundry lines, and all of the sheets were out there. And we're like, oh my goodness, what are we getting into? But we ended up taking a look just through her house, and she said, I can't show you any of the cabins because they're all full right now. And John said, well, how often does that happen? And she said, quite a bit. We've been offering hospitality here since 1930 at the Shady Rest.
Wow.
They themselves were only the 3rd family to own it. We're only the 4th. And she said, if this ends up being a good fit for you, we would love to have you buy it from us. And so my husband and I, this is now in September, as we're driving back to Oregon, I said to him, John, if we're going to come back to South Dakota, which is where our families are both from, I said, I'd like to stay at least through Christmas in Oregon. And he has said, well, if we're going to make this work, we have to get so much money for our house. So in the Catholic Church, you celebrate Christmas until the Feast of the Baptism of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And that night, it's about 3 weeks after Christmas Day, that night at midnight, I couldn't sleep. And so I got up and I looked at our emails, and up pops an email from our realtor. And he said, too late to call, solid offer on your house, $87 more than John's bottom line. So it was a sign that God had used to honor our heart's desires. He let me stay through all the way through Christmas by like 20 minutes. And $87 more than John's bottom line. We were so excited. So in the morning, I called my mom and dad and said, hey, we're buying the Shady Rest. We've got it. We have sold our house. And my mom said, I know, we heard already. And I said, how could you have heard already? We just found out a few hours ago. And she said, well, my best friend was down, or one of my best friends was down in Rapid City, which is about an hour away, at the water aerobics class, and the gal next to her had her phone go off, and she yelled, and she goes, woohoo, we sold it. And she said, share the good news. And she said, we sold the Shady Rest. And she said, is that those yellow cabins up in Custer? And she said, yes. And she said, did you sell it to the lady in Oregon? And she said, yes. Well, she said, that's one of my best friend's daughters over in Oregon. And so she called my mom 20 minutes before we called her. I said, this is really a small town, Mom.
And by the way, it's an adorable town. It's an adorable town. We fell in love with it.
So
we really fell in love.
Years ago, we had been talking to the chamber director, and we saw what a beautiful community this is.
Oh, thank you.
We saw what a beautiful community this is. And I said to the chamber director, you know, we could put out a bumper sticker that says, come to Custer, where people wave with all their fingers.
Oh, I like that.
And in the United States, that's an important thing.
Oh, yes. And I saw signs around, thank you for a smile, or hear you smile. I love that.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the community.
Well, it is a beautiful community. We have a full-time school and we have a full-time hospital. So both of those things are very neat. We have 4 traffic lights in our entire county. And 3 of them are on our main street. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, it is adorable. We walk around and we really fell in love. I cannot express enough how much we fell in love with this place.
So many of the people that we talked to, their story was, yeah, I came to visit and I never left.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, that has happened a lot with people in the Custer area, and Custer is growing quite a bit. Not just because we have a beautiful area, and my mom would say, you know, it's a local call to heaven. So, but this area too in South Dakota, honestly, there was so much weaponization of fear during the pandemic, that those places that were more free states, like ourselves and like Florida, people flocked here, and you could tell that they just needed a place to come away and rest for a while. And it really turned out to be part of our ministry as well as part of our business, because people need a place where they can just reconnect as families. They can set aside all the worries of their business and set aside all of the stress of the world, and just have this little place where traditional values and patriotism and people who care about our neighbors and care about our businesses are here, and we love to offer hospitality as a part of that.
Oh, and that's a beautiful one, because we felt all that, right? We felt loved immediately, welcome immediately. Yes. We felt all the beautiful family values all around us, and we fell in love, like everybody that comes here.
And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said you come and you experience that. It's intangible to say it's just this or it's just that. But there is a sweet spirit over this community.
Yes.
And people care. They care about their yards. They care about their neighbors. They care about their businesses. And not so that it's so that people are in your face, but they welcome newcomers in.
Exactly.
And that's been beautiful. And because of that, we have some really diverse and exciting businesses in town. I think we have 28 restaurants at least within just a few blocks of where we are itself. So you can walk downtown to the business district in just 2 blocks, but between us and that is a green space. So we have this little creek that runs across from us. That's where gold was discovered in the late 1800s and started the Black Hills Gold Rush.
Wow.
So that's called French Creek Park. And from our property, from here, you can see the cathedral spires and Black Elk Peak. Buckhorn Mountain is just to the north here. And behind where all the deer and the jack pines are and the different things, that's a city park that goes into National Forest. So,
and also there was a military memorial over here, which was quite lovely.
It is. That one was just put in by the VFW and American
Really?
Legion. I think it was dedicated in the last 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is. There's a wonderful sense of support for our military, a
Mhm.
wonderful sense of support for our country. We had a friend that stayed with us over the 4th of July, and he's from the Portland area.
Okay.
And they came for the 4th of July parade. And of course, in the 4th of July parade, we have the B-1 bomber fly over, and it's really low. It's like, and here they do a low flyover, and it sets off car alarms, and the dogs all bark, and then you have the parade, and it's children, with their wagons, and it's the floats, and it's all of the search and rescue, and the sheriff's department, and the ambulance service, and the fire department. All of these guys are coming down, and the local bands and things. But my friend from Oregon said, it brought him to tears, because he said it's been so long under the last couple of years when things were so suppressed, and it has been so it's been in vogue to criticize the United States. It's been in vogue to criticize who we are as a people. Yes.
Yeah.
And he said, here everybody is wearing American flags. Everybody has their American flags out. It almost seemed like in the aftermath of 9/11, with the towers going down in New York, I remember our little son Matt at that time, who's now in the military. He's overseas right now in the Air Force. But he said, Mom, I remember 9/11 because it was the day it rained American flags.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Community, everyone put out their American flags to show our support.
Yeah.
And in Custer and in much of South Dakota, people have their American flags out. They're proud of our country, and they pray for our country, and they see what is good in who we are, and aren't ashamed of our heritage, but rather it's like we are better when we are... let me say this. If Americans were the best version of themselves, they would be the best trade partners. If people from Brazil were the best version of themselves, they would be the best place to go visit. Yes, it was something that it was artificially created to make us seem like we are against each other. When really we are for each other. But you are better off bringing the rich diversity that you bring in your love for Brazil and your love for America, and showing that and sharing that with us, then I get to be blessed.
We are blessed.
And to be able to offer you hospitality. And it's because we're so unique, because South Dakota has these quirky little cabins, near Mount Rushmore, that we're not like everywhere else. But that's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. And everything here, it's very traditional, and something that we really appreciated. We spent Halloween, and we were at the street, and I never saw anything so beautiful.
Yes.
It was beautiful. All the families out with the kids, everybody
Family
happy.
values are still very much
Yeah,
intact.
that's what I loved about South Dakota. The family values are very, very high standards here.
And I think, honestly, there's more of that across not only the United States, but across the world. But because there has been such an effort to divide and to fracture and to...
Started in the 70s. 60s, late 60s, early 70s.
Right, and that's not who we are.
No.
There are more good people than bad people in this world.
Yeah.
I believe.
It's just that South Dakota is one of those places where we're reminded of it.
It's
You know,
lovely.
so I'm grateful to be here, and my husband and I recognize it's a privilege to offer hospitality in the Black Hills, because it really is a place where it's protected. South Dakota is protected.
It feels cozy everywhere, and you guys do it perfectly.
Well,
they are awesome. We are feeling home since we arrived.
Swinging back to the Shady Rest Motel, what was the condition of the land when you purchased it?
So the Shady Rest has been here, as I mentioned, since 1930. Actually, one of our neighbors lived in one of the little cabins, and she thought it actually went back to 1929.
Really?
Wow.
But not all of the cabins are that old, but probably within the first 15 years, there were at least 8 cabins. And those are all still on the property. And then we've added not only the hunting lodge, but 4 additional cabins since we came in 2010.
That's excellent expansion.
Yes, it is. It's been really good. And I would say that even though it was much loved, there were some things that really needed to be updated. So we no longer do the laundry online.
Okay.
We do that in our
Okay.
laundry room. My husband has taken out the old barn sashes from a number of the cabins and put in actual windows with the double pane. And all of our cabins have air conditioning, and all of them have free Wi-Fi and those kinds of things. And we have the hot tub in place, which is really, really nice. Under one of the roofs, we found we have metal roofs here in South Dakota. My husband would always say that our state song is Hail South Dakota, but sometimes it's because of the weather. So we have metal roofs on all the cabins, but underneath one of the metal roofs, there were 4 layers of asphalt shingles under 3 layers or over 3 layers of wooden shakers. So that, there needed to be some updates. And so that's something that my husband, who does such a good job, he's the one that's been responsible for so many of the renovations here and has done a beautiful job of updating the cabins so they're cozy, they're very, very clean. They have kind of, each one of them is different one from another, so they're kind of quirky in some of the ways that we've done those. But each one of them seems to be best suited for the people that come in.
That's
It's amazing.
And it really does seem like it's a time capsule. Historic time capsule that you would see from the 1930s driving down the road.
Yeah.
There, let's go there. Across the southern west, there were quite a lot of these. They were very popular, but they no longer exist across the Route 66 and all those famous highways.
Sure.
So this is just so amazing to see one like car nuts. We like to take the old cars and make them all new again. This is beautiful. This is exactly a time capsule. I don't know how else to put it.
Well, it is kind of interesting, and because we have such a rich history here in the Southern Hills, when we first moved here, we weren't sure if we liked the yellow and red. Honestly, my husband was like, oh, I'm not sure we want to keep these bright colors. Although we did find that shortly after World War II, the gal who owned the cabins went overseas, over to Europe, and she saw that the places of hospitality, the hostels that were there, were brightly colored and set up on the sides of a hill. So she came back and chose that yellow and red motif from about the late 40s or early 50s on.
That's fascinating.
But we had called the state, licensing bureau when we first got into this, just to make sure that all of our paperwork was up to date. And we said that we were at the Shady Rest Motel in Custer, and the gal said, oh, are those cute little yellow and red cabins?
See?
And I was like, yes, they are. I got on the phone and said, yep, honey, we are the yellow and red cabins. We've got to embrace it. And we have, so the front row of cabins is all the bright yellow and red, and those are the historic cabins.
That we're going to show you guys soon.
And then in the back row of cabins are more of the modern cabins. And so those are more of the wood colors and different things like that.
And the ones that you guys built it after you bought it, or no?
Yeah, well, we built 2 cabins, number 11 and 12.
Okay.
Were brand new in 2014 and 2015.
Okay.
But we brought 2 other cabins on site. So cabin number 9 and number 10 are both ones that we brought onto the property since we moved here.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, but each of the cabins, again, is different one from another. So I do encourage people, if they're going to be coming out here, to take a look at our website, because you can do a virtual tour of each of the cabins and see not only the views from outside looking around, but going into the cabins and taking a look at each of the amenities or what the cabins offer.
And
just
that's
to get
the
that,
way we found it.
and just to get that online, what is that website?
So it's shady-rest-motel.com.
And you can take a virtual tour of everything there, can't you?
Yes.
That's so cool.
So cool.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And I would like to ask you to talk a little bit of our cabin here.
Oh, this cabin
The
is...
story and everything.
Oh, really?
Yes, please, because we are in love.
This one is so much more unique than
Yeah.
all the other ones. It's actually a little house. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
It is. This one was built, I believe, in 1994, and the people who owned it at that time were in the process of retiring, they thought, and they wanted to sell the Shady Rest to their son and daughter-in-law and their family. So their dream was to live here and then pitch it and help the kids next door.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it didn't end up working quite the way that they all
They
expected
didn't want
it to.
mommy and daddy's business.
Right. But this
So
was
do it
going
on
to
my
be
own.
their dream home. And so
Ah.
that's why they had the wood interiors, the custom-made
Ah.
cabinets. They wanted to have the second bathroom, the upstairs.
Because
and
it's built with care. I don't mean to interrupt, but it really is built with care. You can see that everything was designed for a purpose, really.
Yeah.
Well, they've done a beautiful job with it. And we're so grateful because it sleeps anywhere then from 8 to 10. And then in the off season, we prorate the price so that people can afford to stay even, extending the hospitality just a little bit longer into the season. But that is the Shady Rest's kind of the crown jewel of our place is the hunting lodge itself. And each of the cabins, because we're Catholic, we felt it was important to be able to not only offer hospitality in the Lord's name, but we also wanted to bless the cabins so that there would be just a graceful spirit over each one of them. And so we entrusted each of them to a different saint, actually. So cabin number 1 is Saint Padre Pio, and number 2 is Saint Faustina, and each of them has a different one. You asked specifically about this particular cabin. This was consecrated to Mary, Mother of the Eucharist. And so it is our cabin number 13, which is my husband's favorite number, but it's also the 13th of October that Our Lady had the miracle of the sun with Fatima. And so that was very near and dear to my husband's heart. Years ago when we lived in Oregon, I remember we had looked for a house, and it was my job along with our 2-year-old son to go around with the realtor and look at all the different places. And we asked the Lord to find us just the right fit, a right neighborhood. And we finally, after weeks and weeks of looking, found a little cul-de-sac and a home there. And we fell in love. It was the first property that made sense to us. Sometimes they'll put something quirky out and you're like, oh, I don't quite like that thing.
I know how it is,
But this particular floor plan made a lot of sense to us, and we loved the neighborhood, and we would see families outside, moms and dads and kids. And I said, oh, this is perfect, but I want to see what the neighbors say.
Yeah.
So I went next door, and there was a 94-year-old woman named Vi Young. And she said, may I help you? And I said, we're looking at buying the house next door. Can you tell me anything about the neighborhood? And she said, well, let me ask you a question first. Are you from South Dakota? And I said, yes, we're from South Dakota. And she said, are you Catholic? And I said, yes, we're Catholic. And she said, you're going to love this neighborhood. I've been praying you in for years. And I said,
Wow.
what do you mean? And she said, years ago, I learned that the Lord wants to honor our heart's desires, but we so often forget to ask. So she said, I knew that I would come here and that we would die here, my husband and I. And she said, my husband has already passed. So when I realized that the house next door was going up for sale, I just said, Lord, you know I'm from South Dakota, and you know that I want someone to understand my heart before I leave this world. So would you please find me Catholics from South Dakota to live next door?
Wow, that's so beautiful.
It was beautiful.
That's amazing.
And so another thing that she taught us at that time, or that she shared with me, is that she was an international teacher and she had traveled all over the world. And she said that she learned to ask that the Lord would introduce her to his best friends in every community that she went to. And so that has become our business model here too. We ask the Lord to introduce us to his very best friends. And those are the ones that we greet every day when we open the door and welcome people to the Shady Rest. So we knew you would get here eventually.
God.
That's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Make my heart smile. Makes my heart smile. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we have this huge faith. And we always ask the Lord, we ask God, please help us, bless us, send us to the right direction always. And
Yes. And
we
when
found you.
Thank you, thank you. But when we ask the Lord, he answers.
Yes, every time.
He does.
Every time. And people forget to pay attention. Like you said, they forget to ask. And when they ask, sometimes they forget to pay attention in the answer.
My favorite one is a storm is coming, a flood is coming, and the neighbors come to go, come on, let's go. No, the Lord's going to protect me.
Yeah.
the waters start coming, and a guy on a boat comes by and goes, "Come on, let's go." No, I'm at the second floor. I'm okay. God's going to protect me. We get up to the roof, and a log goes by, and no, I'm okay. God's going to protect me. No. And God's up there going, well, I sent you a car. I sent you a boat. I sent you a log. What do I need to do to show you?
Yeah. I love that. Right? Because some people don't pay attention.
Right.
So we just need to ask, because God knows each one of us. He knows everything.
Well, and that is one of the things that we found here too, how many miracles that we had while we were here. Years and years ago, our two youngest children both ended up, we knew that they were small, but we didn't understand why. We had adopted our son when he was 2.5 and our daughter when she was just 1.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But our son, when he was 7 years old, could still be in 3T bottoms. So just very small, very petite. And so we found out from a blood test and some different tests that we had taken that they had a candida yeast that had invaded their colon. So it was eating the nutrients of the food that they were eating, so they couldn't thrive. So at any rate, the doctor told us, okay, from now on until their guts heal, they have to have 33 foods they cannot eat. So gluten-free, dairy-free, corn-free, soy-free, egg-free, no beef, no chicken. They have to have all of these different things. There were 33 foods we could not eat. And the day that I got that word back from the doctor, my husband was in Rapid City. All 4 of our kids were over at I think it was a swimming pool. But I went into our house and I cried out to God and I said, Lord, what are we going to feed our kids? And a man walked into the living room. And I said, what can I do for you? And he said, is this your office? And I said, no, it's back around the corner. Let's go back that way. And he said, what's going on? Or what can I help you with? And he said, well, I just needed to have 4 gallons of potable water. He said, we're across the street in the park. We have a busload of kids from New York. They're a vegan kosher group and I'm their chef. I need to have water. And I said, you're a vegan kosher chef from New York? I said, I will bring all the water that you want, but tell me what I can feed my kids. And he looked at the list and he goes, well, this is tough, but you know what? I don't see, there's a lot of things that you can eat here, international foods. He said, and you can deliver them right to your door. He said, what if you did this? And he helped me restructure my meal plan. And within 10 minutes, I had the Amazon sites that I could order from. I had an idea of what to do. And he had more water than he knew what to do with. I just was his water Sherpa and then carried that on for him.
Oh my God, God's wonderful.
Yes,
God's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, am I taking too long?
No, I love your stories.
Perfect.
These are beautiful. They're little circles of beauty.
I can tell you lots more. There are so many miracles at the Shady Rest. It's amazing.
Oh, please, at least
Sure,
1 or 2
Do you want
more.
another one?
More,
Sure.
yeah.
So we also have a daughter that's in the military, and she went through training and such during COVID, and then she got to be home for a week before she got sent overseas, and she was going to be overseas for 3 years, and she told me on the way to the airport, she said, Mom, she said, I'm nervous.
Oh.
Here I'm going over. I don't know anybody in this country. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, my dear, the safest place to be is in the center of God's will. And I said, so let's just ask the Lord to give you a sign that he knows where you are and that he's got your back. So we prayed, and then I sent her off into the airport. And then I got back, and of course there's all these people to check into the Shady Rest. And so I welcomed them all. And the last of the groups was the first one that noticed I was wearing my Air Force shirt. And she said, are you Air Force? And I said, oh, not me. I said, my dad, my husband, 2 of our kids. In fact, I just dropped our daughter off. She's heading overseas for the next 3 years to a little base in England. And she said, well, what base in England? And I told her the name of it. And she goes, our 2 daughters were born at that base.
Oh my God.
She said, I'm a senior master sergeant, and up until 3 months ago, that was my base. She said, what's your daughter's name? And I told her, and she got on the phone in our office, speed dialed the command post, and she said, hey, we have a newbie coming in. She'll arrive tomorrow afternoon. Anything she needs, it is on you. And she hung up and she said, you don't have to worry about your daughter. We take care of our own. And I'm like, oh, yes, God, you do.
Thank you, God. My goodness, it's a lot of miracles.
Really is.
I love that. This is too. My goodness, I'm impressed.
There are other ones as well. One of the things that you might notice when you come to Custer is that there are painted buffalo on many of the street corners.
Yes.
And those
I
are
saw.
so fun to see.
Adorable. We took pictures of them all.
So the first year that those painted buffalo were going to come out in our community, there was a lot of advertisement regionally that was saying, come to Custer and see the painted buffalo, you know.
Uh-huh.
So there were a lot of people that were coming in for that event, and we were filled up for a long time. But the day the day before that unveiling was to take place, there was a gal that called and she had to cancel her reservation, and then another lady that came in, and she was obviously, something was wrong. And I said, what's going on? And her mother had come into the office with her, and her mother was quite elderly and very frail. And she said, I'm sorry, we're not going to stay more than just one night. We'll have to cancel the other nights. We have something that's going on. And she kept with her eyes telling me that there was more, but I didn't know what it was. So I said, well, we'll get that figured out. So I went ahead and had them check in, and I got her up to her cabin and got her mom settled. And then she came out and she was in tears, and she said, my mama, she has been so excited about the painted buffalo, and she's wanted, her dream is to meet a buffalo artist and to see the buffalo up close. And she said, but she's sick, and she's not going to be able to continue this trip, and we are going to leave tomorrow before the festivities. There's just no way. And I said, I'm just so sorry. And she goes, yes, I am sorry too, but pray for my mama. And I said, of course I will. Well, that night, pretty late, we got a phone call and someone asked if there was a cabin available. And I said, remarkably, we had a cancellation earlier. So yes, you are welcome to come in. So that woman came in, and she came in late, and she was tired, and she looked like she had had a hard day. And I said, what's going on? And she goes, oh, you would not believe my week. It has been such a crazy week. And here I'm a buffalo artist, and I have to drop off my buffalo, and I'm not even able to stay for the events over the weekend. And I said, you have a buffalo with you? And she said, it's in the back of my pickup. She said, and I won't be able to have anybody meet me, and I won't be able to do anything. So she said, it's just been such a stressful week, you wouldn't even believe it. And I said, now wait a minute. You are here overnight in a cabin that just opened up. And I said, and it's next door to one where there is a woman who wanted more than anything to meet a buffalo artist, and you're in the cabin next door. I said, I think God is using all of this for His glory.
I know He was.
Absolutely.
I know.
So in the morning, the gal came out with her little mother, and the mother was so excited, and she was crying, and she hugged the buffalo artist, and they were just best friends. You know, it was awesome.
Oh my God.
And then just to see how He worked all of that out was amazing. So
it's amazing. That's amazing.
So, and there are many, many other stories here at the Shady Rest. But what I see over and over again is that God has His hand not only on our business, but on our lives. And I don't mean just my husband and children and I mean each one of us. And we need to invite Him in, because He wants to lift the weight of our worry. He wants to give us grace and peace in our soul. He wants to give us hope and a future. And so that's one of the things that we witness here, is people rediscovering the truth that they are known and loved.
Yeah.
That's
Amen.
beautiful.
So,
that's beautiful. Amen to that. That's beautiful.
So
we were talking yesterday, and we said we had to be here.
Well, Lucy, Alec, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of what's going on here in your beautiful channel. Thank you for sharing your visit with us. We again are at the Shady Rest Motel in Custer, South Dakota, and you can get a hold of us on our website, and again, tour all of our different cabins at Shady, SHADY -rest, REST -motel, MOTEL.com. But we're here in Custer, and we would love to offer hospitality to you. So if you'd like to come to South Dakota and see Mount Rushmore and have this beautiful place be yours, you are welcome to do so. We would love to host your stay.
When you come to stay at Shady Rest Motel, tell Ann and John that you watched our channel. I'm sure they're gonna appreciate it very much.